This is Jed Distler, and welcome to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. This is our second to last episode for 2024, and I've decided that we will start what I'll call season number 2 right when the new year starts. And we're going to celebrate the start of our second season with something special. For the first 3 weeks of January 2025 and perhaps beyond, we're going to have a special daily, or at least 5 times a week, I haven't decided just yet, series discussing recordings of the 32 piano sonatas by Beethoven. And I'm pleased to tell you that you can now find the Piano Maven podcast on Substack. A paid subscription to my Substack page enables us to chat about all things related to the piano and piano recordings and piano topics and piano news and, well, everything about the piano. And you also will receive invitations to participate in live Zoom chats where we will be sharing listening experiences, and I also will host special guests. So please consider a paid subscription to my Piano Maven Substack page by visiting the link provided in the episode description. You will be glad that you did. I guarantee that. But let's get to the topic of this episode, which is the topic of box sets that I would like to see happen. Around the time that my friend and colleague David Horowitz began his YouTube channel, and he started making videos for the channel, he posted a video about box set projects that he really wanted to see happen. And quite a few of these actually did come to pass. For example, those complete Eugene Ormandy box sets, the Sony BMG box set containing the complete RCA and Columbia recordings of Dmitri Mitropoulos. I can't remember if Dave had actually mentioned any piano box sets that he wanted to see happen in that video. But I have been cultivating a wish list of piano boxes for years, and as you probably would imagine, my list goes on forever, and my list is overly ambitious, and in many cases, the list has positively unrealistic items, or the kind of items that appeal more to piano geeks than piano mavens or piano crazies, which are even crazier than geeks, Anyway, I have made a list of 10 piano box sets that I suspect would fall within a group consensus pretty much. And also, these are projects that I think are very doable and really quite plausible. And I think the record companies involved would really be well served in putting these out. And only in a few cases are any of these 10 ideas, let's say, esoteric. So we have 10 box sets of piano recordings that I would like to see happen. So here's my first box set idea. Number 1, I would like to see Warner Classics, or even APR, give us a complete edition of the British pianist Solomon's commercial recordings. Most of what he recorded was for the EMI or the HMV labels. He did record for British Columbia before World War II, and I'm sure that Warner Classics can get hold of the Columbia items. But we have never had an absolutely complete and systematic reissue of Solomon's complete recordings, and they all should be remastered from scratch and properly pitched. Now, I don't know how many CDs that would take up, but I think there is certainly a market for it. To be sure, we've had many Solomon reissues We had the EMI Icon box, Profil did a box set, and then there were all those single releases on the Testament label. But there's also material that still has not turned up on CD from Solomon's discography, so far as I know. So that's my box set request number 1, the complete and freshly remastered Solomon. Number 2, this may not really be a box set, and it may only occupy a couple of CDs. But that said, I would love to see the complete recordings that Lucas Foss made for the American Decca label as a pianist. We all know Lucas Foss as a composer and as a conductor, but he was an absolutely amazing pianist, especially as a Bach player. And by the way, here's a true story. Lucas Foss was playing the Bach D minor concerto from the piano in concert, conducting from the piano, and Glenn Gould was in the audience. So Gould goes backstage, and Lucas Foss sees him, and he says, "Glenn, why are you here?" And Glenn Gould said, "Because you're the only one who plays this concerto right." Well, at least that's what Lucas Foss told me when I interviewed him many, many years ago. Anyway, for American Decca, Lucas Foss recorded the Bach D minor and F minor concertos, conducting the Zimbler Sinfonietta. He also conducted the Zimbler Sinfonietta from the piano in the Hindemith Four Temperaments. I am not sure if that was the first commercial recording of that piece, but it's a wonderful, wonderful performance. And Lucas Foss also was the pianist in a recording of his second piano concerto that came out on American Decca. And he did one solo piano LP for American Decca that consisted of the Bach three-part inventions, the symphonias. And I have that on LP, and it's just extraordinary Bach playing. For years, I have been asking Cyrus Mayer-Holmgee of Australian Eloquence to bring out a reissue of all the Lucas Foss piano recordings on American Decca. I think it can be done, and it should be done. These are really, really special recordings. Box set number 3. The recordings that the great Brazilian pianist Guiomar Novaes made for the Vox label from the late 1940s until, I think, the late 50s or the early 60s. They've mostly appeared on various CD and download reissues, but there has never been a truly complete and systematic Guiomar Novaes Vox recordings edition. Now, wouldn't it be great to have her entire Vox output remastered and all shoved into a Vox? And all shoved into a box, original jacket style? I think that would be a great idea, and it's something that I think is really needed. You know, every time the Vox catalog gets a new distributor, or if there's a new person overseeing the catalog, I always reach out to the people involved and I pitch this project. And has anyone ever responded so far? No, of course not. I always get crickets. But I think this really can be done, and I think there's a market for it. So come on, let's get the complete Guiomar Novaes on the Vox label all in a box set. And if you can do it original jacket style, so much the better. Now here is box set request number 4. And with this, I'm getting into totally esoteric territory. And this may not be a box set that would have general appeal. I think it would appeal to piano geeks for certain. This would be a box set that contains the complete International Piano Archives recordings of Irvin Nasi. Nasi, who lived from 1903 until 1987, was one of the most highly scrutinized child prodigies ever, and he astonished audiences as a child and as a teenager. But when he came to New York in his late teens, after making a pretty sensational debut, his career and his life began to unravel as a result of bad luck plus his own impossible temperament. Basically, throughout his adult life, he wound up living in cheap hotels, basically in poverty, and he would spend most of his time prolifically composing the most lugubrious music ever. And he would have endless sexual entanglements that resulted in 10 marriages. But in 1972 or 1973, he started playing again in public after having not played in many, many, many years. And he was rediscovered by a small coterie of piano fans. And eventually he came to the attention of Gregor Benko, the founder of the International Piano Archives, who helped Nirachasi launch a comeback. And thanks to some grant money from the Ford Foundation, Nirachasi was able to make some studio recordings in 1978 for the International Piano Archives. Gregor Benko also had produced some studio recordings with Nirachasi in 1974, released on the IPA's label. Anyway, what happened in the late 70s, Nirachasi suddenly got lots of press attention as the so-called Skid Row pianist, a pianist who didn't own a piano and never practiced, yet he could still make tremendous sounds, and he had this compelling, if rather controversial, interpretive personality, just dealing in extremes, and with a lot of stumbles and wrong notes and, all kinds of weird stuff happening pianistically wise. A lot of piano professionals considered Nirachasi to be a joke, but others did find him fascinating and compelling on his own terms. In any case, Nirachasi was a difficult figure, yet there is something there in his music making for sure. You just have to listen and decide for yourself. So I think it might be a good idea to see all of his released and unreleased International Piano Archive studio recordings boxed up, plus any private recordings of Nirachasi that have not yet been published by Sonetto Classics, which is the small label that has released several Nirachasi concerts complete, including his famous Old First Church 1973 concert. And maybe, just maybe, this box set could include Nirachasi's 1980 and 1982 concerts in Japan complete. That would be kind of interesting. But at least all of the IPA, International Piano Archives studio material, should finally come out all together under one roof. The question is, what label could do this? I really don't know, but it's just an idea. Okay, let's get off of Nirachasi and let's get back to reality and reasonable piano mavenness. Box set number 5 that I would like to see would be a really wonderful Beethoven cycle that came out in 1970 on the Valois label on LP to mark the composer's 200th birthday. This was a cycle encompassing 12 LPs, and it featured the wonderful Norwegian pianist Robert Riefling. And you can hear transfers of the LPs of Riefling's Beethoven cycle on YouTube, and these are very aristocratic and intelligently planned and technically excellent performances. And I'd love to see a newly transferred digital edition, either on CD or through downloadable files. This is a Beethoven cycle that I've enjoyed for many years, and even though the world honestly doesn't need another Beethoven sonata cycle, I've always said that excellence is its own justification. And I think that reissuing Robert Riefling's Beethoven cycle from 1970 or around that time would really draw attention to this pianist's wonderful musicianship. Now for box set number 6, the American Pro Art label that was active in the 1980s and 90s recorded a lot of material with Peter Serkin, and some of these Peter Serkin recordings have been licensed to various groups for download purposes. I've talked about the Bach Guild Big Box download bundles that have revived some of the Pro Art catalog. Anyway, Peter Serkin recorded extensively for Pro Art, and some of his recordings for that label can be found in these download bundles, but not all of them have appeared. He recorded not just on a modern Steinway, but also some of his Pro Art recordings were made on a forte piano. And there's a lot of wonderful material here. He recorded Bach's Goldberg variations with all the repeats and the Italian concerto. He recorded the late Beethoven sonatas on forte piano. And he made a Steinway version of the Beethoven Hammerklavier sonata that has not been available for years, but this is one of my absolute favorite Hammerklavier recordings on record. He recorded the Diabelli variations for Pro Art. He did some Mozart solo works. He did a Chopin disc. He recorded the 2 Brahms concertos, which I find are rather underplayed. But still, I think that maybe Musical Concepts would be the label to bring out the complete Peter Serkin Pro Art catalog and shove it all in a box, original jacket style. Why not? I mean, Musical Concepts already brought out the late Beethoven sonatas on forte piano, so why don't they go the whole hog, so to speak? So that's box set number 6 on my list, the complete Peter Serkin on Pro Art. Now, this next box set, again, may not turn out to be a box set. Maybe it's only 2 CDs, maybe a 3rd CD. I don't know. But this is something that I would love to see happen. When the American pianist Anne Sheen was in her early 20s, she recorded a series of releases for the American Kapp label, that's K-A-P-P. Kapp was a subsidiary of American Decca and part of that family of labels. And it's now controlled by Universal Classics, so far as I know. I think they have all of the American Decca and Westminster labels. Anyway, Anne Sheen's recordings for Kapp were highly acclaimed, and justifiably so. And they've had kind of a cult following. There was one release on the MCA label on CD, maybe about 20 or so years ago, maybe 30 years ago, I can't remember. And this release coupled Anne Sheen's recital of etudes along with the 4 Chopin scherzos. These were 2 LPs on one CD. And she also recorded an excellent Rachmaninoff 3rd concerto for Kapp, and also for the label she recorded Chopin's 2nd concerto. I cannot think off the top of my head if she did more recordings for Kapp. But a few years ago, I did meet someone at a small label who was seriously thinking about reissuing the Anne Sheen Kapp recordings. But since Kapp, as I said before, is controlled by Universal Classics, maybe this might be another project for Australian Eloquence. I guess it would take 2 CDs, maybe a 3rd CD. So this really isn't a big box, so to speak, but this would be a wonderful reissue that I think a lot of people would enjoy. The complete Kapp recordings by Anne Sheen. So that's my box set, or box set-ish, release number 7. Box set number 8 on my list of box sets I would like to see. Well, I'm going to slightly cheat here because I'm going to propose the same artist in 2 different box sets. From Warner Classics, I would like to see this label gather all of Schur-Chaski's HMV and EMI recordings and remaster them all from scratch. We've never had Schur-Chaski's HMV and EMI recordings brought all together in one absolutely complete collection. So what about it? And the same goes for Universal Classics. Could Australian Eloquence again shove all of the Schur-Chaski recordings for L'Oiseau Lyre British Decca, Deutsche Grammophon, and ASV in a box, original jacket style. And would these also include the series of British Decca releases drawn from BBC material and have everything properly pitched while we're at it? I know there's a market for both of these box set ideas, the complete Schur-Chaski on Warner and the complete Schur-Chaski on Universal. Box set number 9. The piano duo of Yara Tal and Andreas Groethuysen have made numerous CDs for Sony Classical, and not just the complete Schubert piano for hands repertoire, but tons of other releases featuring interesting and really varied repertoire. I have no idea how many CDs these pianists have made for Sony altogether, but I think a complete Tal and Groethuysen duo recordings for Sony would make a really cool multi-disc big box set. And you'd get uniformly excellent recordings encompassing a great deal of the one piano, four hands, and two piano repertoire. I think this would really fill a need repertoire-wise, and it would be so easy to put this together, original jacket style, of course. And now that we've landed at Planet Sony BMG, I've come to the holy grail of my piano box set requests. This is box set number 10, and if you are a fan of Vladimir Horowitz, you know exactly where I am going with this. Just about every Vladimir Horowitz acolyte I know wants to see Sony BMG bring out an absolutely complete, or as complete as possible, edition of all of the concerts that Horowitz played at Carnegie Hall that he had arranged for the Carnegie Hall Recording Corporation to record for him privately. These private recordings live at Yale University, and some of this material has been released to the public on Sony BMG, as well as RCA Victor in previous years. And also a couple of concerts have leaked out, so to speak, and have floated around the underground. Yet I know that serious piano mavens all over the world would give anything to see the entire Horowitz Yale collection made available at long last to the public in a box set. I think this is top priority of all the Horowitz projects that may be cooking. I also should mention, this is just a little sidebar, that there is a 3-disc set that I actually had annotated back in 2021, but it is still in contractual limbo so far as I know. And it involves Vladimir Horowitz and his 1968 television special. It includes all the performances, all the takes, all of the inserts, all of the false starts, all the rehearsal takes, all the talking and all the noodling around on the piano in between takes. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle. And I hope that will come out pretty soon because it's absolutely fascinating. Also, there still are miscellaneous Horowitz studio recordings that he did not originally approve for release. Yet I wonder if the masters exist, because there are some odds and ends from the early 1950s that have escaped from the vault and have floated around the so-called underground. I know that there are outtakes from the 1960s and 70s, and I'm very curious to see what's there and what might be able to be issued. Also, I wonder if the master tape exists that was edited down from various concerts recorded during Horowitz's disastrous 1983 tour. These were concerts where he was having memory lapses and playing tons of wrong notes, and his playing was quite incoherent a lot of the time. A copy of this edited master tape was brought to Horowitz for his approval, but he wouldn't even bother to listen, so nothing ever happened. I guess that's understandable, but does that edited tape exist anywhere? I would be very curious about it. But the most important thing is the 1940s and early 1950s Carnegie Hall material recorded privately for Horowitz, the entire Yale collection. And I really hope that will come out on CD in our lifetime, I hope. And let's hope that at least some of these piano box set ideas will eventually materialize into reality in 2025. In the meantime, I wish you all the best for your health and well-being in the new year 2025, and that you pursue what is important to you and to live as positively and lovingly as you can. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. And I look forward to being with you for the beginning of season number 2 in the new year. Oh, and we do have one more episode in season 1. It's going to be the best releases of 2024. Do you want to know what those are? Well, you have to listen to our next episode. Be well.